I have a dream. 4 words that would forever turn the tide of racial injustice. On August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his monumental speech to more than 250,000 civil rights supporters from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Now, 50 years later, the African American community is reflecting on the ongoing efforts towards racial equality. NCTV 17's Kevin Maychek has the story.
President Obama delivered a speech to thousands gathered at the nation's capital, honoring those that marched there 50 years ago, fighting for equal rights.
Because they marched, America became more free and more fair, not just for African Americans, but for women and Latinos, Asians and Native Americans, for Catholics, Jews, and Muslims.
While he didn't march in Washington, Naperville resident Thomas Armstrong did take part in the civil rights movement. As a student at Tougaloo College in Mississippi, he risked his life during the 60s to help other African Americans register to vote and became a freedom rider, once getting thrown in jail for riding a bus to New Orleans. In his book, Autobiography of a Freedom Rider, My Life as a Foot Soldier for Civil Rights, Armstrong details the trials and tribulations of the civil rights era.
But I became withdrawn, didn't want to deal with people, didn't want to see people, didn't want to talk to people, just didn't want to be around them, period. After the movement, I became an alcoholic.
Herman White also grew up in the segregated South, going to high school in Tuskegee, Alabama at a time when the city was beginning to integrate schools.
There was, in fact, a certain amount of terrorism. People shot in houses to keep the African Americans from even trying to integrate the one high school that was in the city.
Today, White is in his 39th year as a scientist for Fermilab and says civil rights activists like Martin Luther King Jr. paved the way for his career.
The focus on the civil rights movement was not really a focus on science. And it wasn't an exclusive focus on higher education or on the access to education. But to some extent, it was a focus on making sure that the opportunities existed for people to be able to pursue what they wanted to pursue.
Since Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in 1963, progress has been made for racial equality, especially in terms of outlawing discrimination. But many say his dream has yet to come true.
We have a problem with race in this country. Mainly, I see it as because we as groups, different ethnic groups, refuse actually to talk to each other.
Racism is not just attitudinal, it's systemic. It's not just about how we treat one another. It's not just about getting along. It's about an entire organizational structure that was put in place to support white supremacy, and that has to be dismantled. We've taken some steps, but by and large, Americans have not been willing to wrestle with those larger systemic issues.
President Obama said we can tackle those issues and even move mountains if millions of Americans of every race band together. I'm Kevin Maychek for Naperville News 17.
According to a CBS News poll, 40% of African Americans say there's still a lot of discrimination, while only 15% of Caucasians agree.